Imagine being trapped in a room where every second counts, and the only way to survive is to tear your own body apart. For a man named Troy, this isn't a nightmare. It's the final moments of a life he never truly appreciated. Despite having talent and a wealthy family, Troy spent his years cycling through prison cells, and now he's facing his ultimate judgment. Chains are bolted directly into his flesh, his arms, his legs, and even his jaw. A video plays, a familiar, distorted voice telling him that a bomb is set to detonate. To live, he must rip the chains out one by one. The pain is agonizing, a visceral scream caught in his throat as he tears metal from his own skin. He manages to free his limbs, but the chain in his jaw is a bridge too far. By the time the police cut through the steel doors, Troy is nothing more than a memory scattered across the floor. Detective Carrie looks at the scene and realizes something is wrong. This wasn't a game designed by the Jigsaw Killer, John Kramer. John always leaves a way out, but this room was a tomb from the start. The door was welded shut. Jigsaw gives his victims a choice, but this person wanted execution. Later that night, Carrie finds herself watching a video feed of her own bedroom. Before she can react, she's abducted. She wakes up suspended in the air, her ribcage locked into a heavy metal apparatus. A vat of acid sits before her, containing the key. Carrie plunges her hand into the searing liquid, the acid melting her skin as she screams in agony. She gets the key and unlocks the device, but it doesn't matter. The machine triggers anyway, tearing her apart. The rules have changed. Across the city, Dr. Lynn is a brilliant surgeon, but her personal life is a hollow shell. Depressed and cheating on her husband, she's lost her passion for everything, often hiding in the hospital locker room to avoid her patients. Her shift ends, and a figure in a pig mask strikes. Lynn wakes up in a damp, makeshift medical ward. Lying before her is John Kramer, the Jigsaw Killer, withered and dying from an inoperable brain tumor. His apprentice, Amanda, is there to enforce the rules. They place a collar around Lynn's neck, a device loaded with shotgun shells and linked to John's heart monitor. If John's heart stops, or if Lynn tries to leave his side, the collar will detonate. Her mission is simple: keep the dying man alive long enough for one last game to conclude. The subject of that final game is a man named Jeff, a father consumed by a singular, burning hatred. Years ago, his son Dylan was killed by a drunk driver, and Jeff has spent every day since then obsessing over revenge against the driver, the witnesses, and the judge who gave a light sentence. His obsession has destroyed his marriage and alienated his daughter. Jeff wakes up in a wooden crate. A tape recorder tells him he has 2 hours to face his past and choose between vengeance and forgiveness. He breaks out and finds his first test, a walk-in freezer. Inside is Danica, the only witness to his son's death who refused to testify. She is stripped naked, and cold water is being sprayed over her as the temperature drops. Jeff watches her freeze, his heart hardened by years of bitterness. She begs for mercy, and eventually, Jeff's conscience flickers to life. He reaches for a key hidden behind a frozen metal pole. As he grabs it, the skin of his hands rips away, frozen to the metal. He struggles to unlock her, but it's too late. Danica turns into a statue of ice before his eyes. Moving deeper into the facility, Jeff finds a box containing a single bullet and a note. He enters the next room to find Judge Holden, the man who let the killer go free. The judge is chained at the bottom of a massive vat. As Jeff watches, a machine begins grinding up rotting pig carcasses, pouring a stream of putrid, liquefied remains onto the judge. The vat is filling up fast. The key to save the judge is inside a furnace, tied to a collection of Jeff's son's belongings. To get the key, Jeff must burn the last physical memories he has of his boy. As the judge disappears beneath the layer of filth, Jeff finally chooses to let go of the past. He ignites the fire, watches his son's toys turn to ash, and pulls the key to free the judge. The final test awaits. Jeff and the judge enter a room where Timothy, The driver who killed Dylan is strapped into a horrific machine called the rack. This device is designed to twist a person's limbs one by one until the bones snap. The key is tied to the trigger of a shotgun. If Jeff pulls it, the gun will fire, but the machine will stop. As the machine begins to creak, Timothy's arms are twisted into impossible angles. The sound of snapping bone fills the room. Jeff hesitates, the face of his son's killer bringing back all his rage. The judge pleads with him to be the better man. Finally, Jeff reaches for the key, but as he pulls it, the shotgun fires, killing the judge instantly. Jeff tries to use the key on the rack, but the mechanism is too complex. He watches in horror as Timothy's neck is twisted, ending the life of the man he hated most. Meanwhile, in the sick room, John's condition is critical. Pressure is building in his skull, causing violent seizures. With no specialized equipment, Lynn is forced to perform an improvised craniotomy. She uses a household drill to bore holes into John's skull to relieve the pressure. It's a grisly, high-stakes procedure, but she succeeds. John stabilizes, and in his delirium, he reaches out, whispering, "I love you," to Lynn, hallucinating that she is his ex-wife, Jill. Amanda watches this with a toxic, jealous rage. She has spent years by John's side, believing she is his only true successor, but she sees John's kindness toward Lynn as a betrayal. Amanda begins to spiral, cutting herself as she realizes the game is reaching its end. John wakes up and tries to mentor Amanda one last time. He reminds her that he despises murderers and that his games are about the will to live, not death. But Amanda reveals a dark secret. She's the one who made the recent traps inescapable. She didn't believe the victims could change, so she turned the games into executions. When Jeff finishes his final test and approaches the sick room, John tells Amanda to let Lynn go. He reminds her that there are rules, but Amanda refuses. She pulls a gun and shoots Lynn just as Jeff walks through the door. Seeing his wife shot, Jeff doesn't hesitate. He raises the gun he found earlier and shoots Amanda in the neck. As she bleeds out, John reveals the final twist. This wasn't just Jeff's game, it was Amanda's too. John knew she was sabotaging the traps, and Lynn was her final test. If she had let Lynn live, she would have survived. He also reveals that Lynn and Jeff are husband and wife, a fact he kept hidden to see if they could find their way back to each other through the pain. Amanda dies in a pool of blood, a failed apprentice. Now, only Jeff and John remain. John offers Jeff one last choice. He tells Jeff he can call an ambulance for Lynn and walk away, or he could take his revenge on the man who orchestrated this entire nightmare. Jeff looks at the dying man who caused his family so much pain. He tells John he forgives him, and then he picks up a power saw and slits John's throat. As John's heart rate flatlines, the shotgun collar around Lynn's neck detonates. In his final breath, John plays one last tape. He tells Jeff that he has failed his ultimate test of forgiveness. Because Jeff killed the only man who knew the location of his young daughter, she's now trapped in a hidden room with a limited air supply. Jeff is left alone in the dark, screaming for his family as the doors seal shut. Deep in the bowels of the building, Detective Eric Matthews, the survivor of a previous game, realizes he is still trapped in the bathroom. Seeing no other way out, he picks up a heavy stone and begins to smash his own foot into a pulp, desperate to escape the chains at any cost. The cycle of pain continues, and the game is far from over.